Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 15th edition of the Meet Your Delegate calls at MakerDAO. I'm Patrick. I'm one of the GovAlpha contributors at MakerDAO, and I'm delighted to welcome the Governance House team who've come to present their platform to us today. Welcoming Joe, Punkar, and Matthew, all of whom are members of the delegate team. And we're going to give them the usual format where they'll have 5 to 10 minutes to present their platform. And then we'll move on into a question and answer session. Feel free to leave questions in the chat and I'll read them out. Or if you've got any points you want to raise, feel free to raise your hand or just interject if there's a lull in the conversation. And just a reminder that this is being recorded and will go on YouTube. So bear that in mind. And I will now hand over to Punkar, who's going to present for us.
Sounds perfect. Thank you, Patrick. So let me share my screen. Can you see it okay?
Looks good.
Perfect. Thank you for having us here. We are Governance House. So I will start with a little history how we got created, and then we'll go into what's our mission and how we want to operate within Maker. So Governance House has been created this year, so it's a fairly new organization. However, the members of the Governance House has been in Web3 for some time. It all started, I would say, within meta governance stuff in Index Corp, where we've been discussing how we can basically improve meta governance, not just for Index Corp itself, but like overall for the ecosystem, because we have seen a lot like voter apathy. There has been not much participation at the forums, proposals couldn't be executed, and so on. And there was many things happening, and one of the things was like to create kind of independent organization where contributors from various DAOs which are interested in governance and also have knowledge of other aspects of DeFi can join and help basically the ecosystem to grow. And that's how basically Governance House started. And as I mentioned, like the organization itself, it's a cooperation hub. So the members of the Governance House participating also in other organizations, DAOs, protocols. You can see, like I would say, the major here. There's probably a few more, and we are expanding on that. We really want to, cover all aspects of DeFi / Web3 to have the knowledge to be able to actually like make informed decisions on particular proposals, and also to be able to maybe create our own proposals, suggest some optimizations, and so on. So we really believe in like knowledge sharing and cooperation rather than competition here. Like we want to know what is going on in the system, what works, what doesn't, so we can really enable innovation. This is our core values. So basic on this core values, we will be basing our areas. I already mentioned one, which is openness. We really want to be collaborative. We don't want to, hide some information for sake of having some advantages or so. We really want to be transparent, share knowledge between the entities and within the ecosystem, so we can grow as an industry. We also believe that making quick decisions, it's not always the best idea, especially if there is a lot of funds involved, and we rather check like what makes sense, what's safe, and how we can proceed the best way for the community, for the holders, and so on. Others like trust, integrity, it's really connected to the transparency itself, like informing community about our decisions, why we are doing something, and also collaboration within Governance House, where we also accepting only contributors where we can trust each other, so that there will be no malicious actor basically. So that's also like within our organization itself, being doing this similar decision, like not be changing our minds every single time, but really be that one who is pushing like the progress in the industry. Collaboration I already mentioned, so would not repeat myself. And entrepreneurial spirit, that's connected to the making our own proposals. So not just be having opinions on something what is happening, but also if we see gaps, or if we see like that, and specifically here for a maker, there can be something how we can improve, how we can expand maybe the market for dye or something like that, or improve organization structure, whatever it can be. We want to also put the proposals forward. So we want also like contribute in the way that like we can help out, we can provide resources, we can provide the plan how we can improve, or how maker can improve. And that's basically what it's on this slide. It's really like,
Okay.
sorry, was there any question or just no?
I think someone accidentally unmuted. I would just carry on.
That's fine. At least I could have paused a little bit. So this is how we want to help maker ecosystem. Like we want to make sure that like the dye, all the products within maker is expanding. We are supporting the market, and in the same time we are also defending the market itself. So we see like both sides kind of this equation. We need to support the expansion, but we also need to protect maker from any governance attacks, exploits, and so on. So that's how we want to really support the maker ecosystem. And and that's probably it from the presentation perspective. So I hope it was the 5 to 10 minutes as promised. And now we can get into the questions. But before that, Matthew or Joe, do you want to add something?
Just big fans of DAI and big fans of DeFi, and all of us here are very passionate about the space. I want to make sure we can help out in any way we can to keep DeFi running, especially with this crazy market going on right now and this cascading liquidations across these centralized actors. It's never been more important for crypto to have DeFi right now and to have it be really strong and have the whole community come together. So really happy to be here and work with you guys.
Yeah, very well covered there, Priyanka and Joe. So I'd just like to echo that. Really looking forward to working with Maker. I think we've done a bit of work already for Maker, like around some of the integrations with Aave and Aave Arc Market. So really looking forward to getting D3M plugged in there in the future when the time's right. And just really looking forward to working with the community and doing everything we can to help and drive some of those connections and integrations across DeFi. So really looking forward to it.
Thank you for the presentation. I think you were well within the time limit, so that's really good. I'm just going to open the floor straight up to questions. I can see there's a couple of questions already coming through in the chat. Kianga and David, do you want to hop on the mic, or do you want me to read them out?
I'll hop on the mic real quick. I'm curious lately about just delegates and whether they know MKR holders coming in as they're proposing themselves as delegates. So I'm curious, besides Rune and maybe publicly known large MKR holders, does anyone in your group know an MKR holder upfront that is going to delegate to you, or if you're anticipating a delegation from, or anything like that?
So I can answer first, and if Joe or Matthew want to add something. So from what we know, and I already kind of touch upon it, Index Group, it's large MKR holder. If they delegate to us, we don't know yet. There is some technical, work which needs to be done to enable the delegation itself. Then they might consider delegating to us, but it will be up for the community to vote if the delegate house should be governance house should be the one using their tokens. But just for transparency, I want to mention it.
Right on, thanks.
Oh, yeah. So there was a question in the chat from Kianga, who's Acre Invest, one of our other delegates, and she's asking if you could let us know your backgrounds in the space and what you will be spending time on other than Governance House, or is Governance House kind of a full-time role for all of you across the various protocols?
So guys, anyone else want to start? So I'm not
Sure,
talking all
I
the
can
time.
start. Yeah, I spend a lot of time consulting in the space right now with Bankless Consulting as a tokenomics consultant. I'm also a DeFi power user and I've been in the space since 2016. I also work with Tokenomics DAO, building tokenomics models from scratch, and some governance work with Voltage Finance as well as Bankless.
So I'll follow on there. So I'm Matthew Graham. I joined Index Coop basically in 2020. I led the finance team there, built that out to from scratch to a full team. I also contribute at Llama, which does more treasury management kind of flavor across a number of different partners there. And more recently with the meta governance, become more actively involved in the Aave ecosystem. So we have Governance House as a proposal there on that forum, also looking to set itself up as delegate in that system. And we've been contributing in the Aave ecosystem for quite a while, basically through Index Coop, but now more recently under the Governance House kind of banner. So yeah, use a lot of DeFi, so it's been great. So always continually learning. I love that about DeFi and everything that's like new, the opportunities for collaboration. And I think being plumbed into quite a few different communities really helps foster that collaboration across these different communities and find those opportunities to help growth.
Perfect, and I will go last. So I'm also within few communities. I would say I have 3 areas where I spend most of my time. One is Governance House. Second, it's Bankless Consulting, which is kind of connected because I'm specializing on governance and tokenomics on kind of both sides. And then I'm also part of Gitcoin. So there I'm helping with operations and governance. So lately I was redesigning their forum to kind of support the discussion what is going there, because I think Gitcoin is a really good example that there is really a lot of discussion on the forum. It's just like the discussion outgrow the structure of the forum, so we had to improve on that. And Index Group has been mentioned, so I'm involved still there, but not that much as I used to be. Any other question?
That's great. Thanks. There is a question in the chat, Tim. I don't know if you want to ask it yourself.
Yeah, I can hop on the mic. Hey guys, it's Tim from Deep Black Loops or FBL Delegate. I just wanted to sort of take the time now to unpack meta governance as a service. There's a lot of people who mention meta governance. It's a nice buzzword, but I think the actual deliverables of what it is are kind of unclear. So maybe you guys can sort of unpack who is the customer? Do you charge? What's the impact it provides? I give a little bit of that track record. You've already been doing that, but I'd love to hear a little more.
Matthew, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure thing, mate. Just about to jump in there. All right, so meta governance as a service it's a new term that we've coined. So I think being a delegate and active in communities like voting and governance is not so much new. I think there's a number of players in the space that do it. So we obviously want to help solve like the vote apathy problem, being active in communities, bringing opportunities to those communities. So where we differ, which is where meta governance service really kind of comes into the fold, is we want to be able to bring an idea to the community, but also be very active and drive some of the opportunities in those integrations. So we know most core dev teams are very focused on like high priority tasks. So some of these more third-party business integrations, DeFi integrations that sometimes drift a little bit further down the list. So where Governance House can really come into it is identify those opportunities, bring them to the community, and also provide some of the, not just the networking and the votes, but the resources in order to actually get some of these proposals implemented. So in terms of actually implementing these proposals, the way we typically fund them are either through grants or just basically through a payment. And that's largely basically set up to cover the costs of the resources to actually drive the integrations all the way through to actual implementation. So if you can, some examples of it is we've been looking at supporting some of the listings on the RV markets. Some applications have gone through the RV grants where it's applicable there. Some communities are like offering to pick up, like pay for some of the resources to actually cover supporting that asset listing there. So it's really, that's basically the crux of it. It's doing all this incurs a cost, and we basically are looking to basically cover those ends through it.
Yeah, hi, I have a follow-up on that. Thanks, Tim, for the question. Because I'm still not sure I fully grasp the concept. I mean, I've been thinking about, and others in the space have used the term meta governance, and how I'm thinking about it is, for example, from Maker's perspective, right? We have tokens, we may hold tokens and other protocols. And then the meta governance, like we have our own governance, which we're all here doing all the time. But then as a DAO, us participating in the governance of another protocol because we hold the assets, which is a challenge. We don't really have a mechanism in place right now to monitor and form a view and decide as either maker holders or as delegates, perhaps how we would vote tokens on other platforms. So I've thought of that as the meta governance, right? Like kind of the governance that pertains, the governance within MakerDAO that pertains to governance decisions happening with either our strategic partners or governance assets that we may hold in our treasury. So how you're viewing meta governance as a service, either similar to what I've described or different?
I think it encompasses everything you've just said and probably goes a little bit further.
Okay.
So for instance, I think something we've touched on already is like Index Coop has DPI. There's a whole heap of governance tokens inside DPI. So Index Coop is very active in voting in different communities. So they vote with their index token on a snapshot, and then that vote gets implemented on the respective community. So in this instance, if Maker was like Index Coop and has like lots of asset holdings where it could use to vote in these communities, what you have is like a governance process. You probably have to figure out what that looks like. With Index Coop, it is using snapshot, and then it would be Maker holders voting would be the comparison there. And then because there's so much happening in this space, how do you keep on top of not just what's happening in Maker, but all these other communities you're going to vote on? So then it comes to a question of how can you take high context and knowledge around that vote and then basically share it with the broader community so they can either form their own opinion and then vote accordingly, or do you then elect to say delegate it out to a group which has the context, which will provide the updates, or even just facilitate that as a process? Because there's the process the actual vote goes through. There's enabling people to actually vote with information, because otherwise people default just end up either not voting or vote yes. And then there's the actual execution and implementation of it. So at Index Coop, Governance House has presented a proposal there to the Index Council to actually run the snapshot, provide a recommendation in Discord to the contributors, and then actually implement that vote. So that falls under the banner of meta governance as a service, because it's the DAO, it's their meta governance, and Governance House is performing a service to the community.
Is that how you see your role here at Maker? In your role as a recognized delegate with our current structure, would your focus then be on supporting our meta governance, which we don't really have a structure for yet? Or are you more going to be focused on just our status quo internal, voting that we currently have ongoing, or is it a combination?
It is a combination, and you could probably add an extra flavor to that, which is if throughout our network we find an opportunity to integrate DAI or even the Maker token, we will bring that into the Maker community and present that. So there's several different flavors to it, but holistically it spans everything you've touched on.
I'm going to throw it to David now. He'd asked a question in the chat.
Oh yeah, I could repeat it and also add a little bit to it. So I'm curious, who is the most knowledgeable person on the team with regards to Maker, and exactly like how knowledgeable are they? How long have you been following and all of that? And additionally, is there any like sort of specialization that you would say your team has that can contribute to better decision making overall at MakerDAO?
I can take that question probably. So I think I'm not sure if I can point to one person who is the most knowledgeable. Joe has been doing research and like using Maker for some time. It's been in the space and I'm like, with interest in Maker for long. Matthew as well, like, in DeFi, involved in Index Group, Aave, within Maker as well, maybe not like particularly in like Maker governance. And so I have been interested in Maker more on the, like, let's say, strategic governance structure in the way like how you actually operate, and how you are expanding to like real world assets and so on. So we are trying to have like for every particular aspect of Maker someone who will understand that, so we can vote, like make informed decision on it. If we don't have that expert, if there will be some specific topic we don't know about, we would probably abstain from voting. So just to maybe summarize it, like us three should like combine, have the knowledge to vote on like majority of the proposals. Each of us has different expertise.
That's
Yeah,
great.
cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just going to throw it straight over to Maker Man now. Thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Patrick. Boy, I'm trying to figure out where to go with this, because I'm thinking about this governance as a professional organization, right? And, if I thought about these professional organizations being spread across, I don't know, let's just say the entire governance space, right? You have serious conflicts of interest going on, and then you have potential lack of specialization. Like for one, I own stuff in a lot of different things, and I potentially can participate in governance. I focused on Maker, one, because it's pretty complex. Two, it's a significant logo, right? Or a Lego in the system. And so my concerns with the group, I see these groups popping up, is ideas that there's information in Maker that literally can't, it's private. And so there's going to be certain aspects of Maker information and governance that there's going to be issues with participating in, right? And then being knowledgeable about. And so my question to you guys is like, how do you see these professional organizations evolving, and how they're going to deal with issues of conflicts of interest and information flows, and being, the idea that I'm going to have to deal with 4 different people to bring them up to speed on some issue. If we're communicating, delegates communicate somewhat, but not a lot. how am I going to do that when I have to deal with 4, 5, 8, 10 people in an organization versus having a single point person who may be knowledgeable and is the person that can delineate or pass out information to the organization? And how is that going to work? I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I'm going to have a hard time seeing like a U.S. representative, right? Like in the legislature being a group, and then that group being able to sit in European legislature or Chinese legislature or whatever, and then having to deal with all the conflicts of interest and manage all these different things in ways that make sense. And so I'm kind of curious how you deal with that.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think there was multiple questions in that. So I will start with the first one with the point person. So yes, personally, I don't believe that like group can be accountable. So that's why I took kind of the spotlight of being like the point person and accountable for everything. And also like if someone needs to communicate to governance house for maker things, it will be through me. And I will make sure that whoever needs to be involved will be involved. So there will be no like, multiple people which needs to be informed from you or something like that. It should be me, the one who will be communicating that, and also who is responsible. So that's the first. Conflict of interest and like confidentiality. So definitely transparency, it's like number one. So whenever we can, we don't want to kind of, we want to share knowledge, and we want to kind of make sure that we can do that within the group or even beyond, like to support the DeFi ecosystem. However, I understand that some information may be confidential, and we will respect that. So whenever maker says like that there is a confidential information which cannot go beyond maybe myself or like beyond the internal group, like who is involved within maker and governance house, means maybe me, Joe, Matthew, we will respect that, and we will make sure that it doesn't go beyond if that's what maker will kind of instruct us. But we don't want to hold information from someone or like, not be transparent. That's not something what we want to do. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I hope so. Makerman, are you there?
Yeah, you basically answered my question.
Okay, if you have any other like concerns, like please let me know. We want to make sure that this cooperation would work. So if there needs to be adjustments, and we are, newly created organization with like very, I would say, ambitious vision and to grow DeFi ecosystem, and like, we want to learn as much as we can, like how this can actually operate. So we are rather supportive than like making any blockers on the way.
Okay,
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's been a few questions raised in the chat, so I'm going to try and summarize them into kind of one question. So the question is regarding how your decision-making process is as a team. Is it one person that will be making decisions? Do you all have an equal say? And similarly to that, what's kind of the structure of the team? Is it an organization? Is it a DAO? Are you employees of Governance House? Are you the owners of Governance House? How does that work, and how would that tie into a decision-making process?
Yeah, so currently, and this might evolve, currently there is basically towards maker, I will be the responsible person. So I will be responsible for making the final decisions. And like, I will be basically Joe and Matthew and David and maybe a few others will be like advising on that. This might change eventually, that we will form DAO. At the moment, there is no like DAO which can like overturn the decision or something like that, or that we need to like, do something what Index is doing with meta governance, like voting on our own decision. So that will be like the structure of decision making towards maker at the moment.
Okay, and then kind of a logical follow-up question then might be, I know Tim raised this in the chat. So there's occasions at Maker where we need people to vote quickly. So that's how Maker works. It's how any governance proposal and executive vote. If there's a big security issue, we will be contacting delegates saying we need you to vote within the next few hours sometimes. Would that be then, would Punkar be kind of have the trust of the rest of the team to make those decisions in an emergency situation, or would that still need a discussion among the team in those kind of situations?
Absolutely, Punkar would be the man to go to in this situation. He'd be your direct delegate for sure.
Yep.
Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, also my question was about if you're a DAO or an incorporated entity, and so are you owners of the entity, or just how you're legally structured as a team?
So at the moment, and Matthew, correct me if there was some progress, but there is no legal entity at the moment. If I'm not mistaken, it's like basically that's why I will be the point of contact as a person. If that change, we will definitely update MakerDAO on that. So we are still kind of, as newly created, organization, we are still like thinking what is the best structure to use. But that's why I will be the one, like a person facing the Maker.
Okay, and then another question, just going back to what we were talking about before from Tim in the chat, do you have a multi-sig that you're using to vote with, or will Punkar be in charge of the wallet that's, in a kind of a time-sensitive situation? How does that work?
Yeah, if I can add a little context, mostly like, obviously, if we're thinking long enough term, this will sort of be a proxy for like fiduciary duties, right? So if you're running as an organization, there's some level of compliance internally, right? We see that from other teams. And so I was just curious if you guys are starting with one trusted actor who's running like a one of N multisig, or if you're actually just going to be doing one EOA, just because I'm curious, actually.
Yeah, so I think this is something what we need to discuss, because with the fast like decision making, as you just mentioned, like I will be the one deciding, but we had multi-sig, so like now I see the paradox in it. So I think that's something what we need to discuss internally, how we can execute on it, and if there will be basically just like, I can do the decisions from wallet which I own. So let me kind of take that offline and like update you on our decision, because yeah, I see kind of the paradox now happening here.
I mean, I think that's been a really fruitful discussion, and we've kind of just hit the 30-minute mark there. So unless anyone's got any burning questions they want to ask, we'll probably wrap it up. Oh, I've got a hand up here from Iceberg. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one question. What's the timeline we are looking at right now? And like, what's the aim timeline in the future for the integration of the corporations?
You mean with the legal entity?
Yeah, like what's the timeline that we can feel comfortable with the setup that we will have in the future?
So the legal entity timeline, as it has not been decided what type of legal entity we will be using, or if it will be DAO, and for maybe in multiple jurisdiction, I cannot really like give you any concrete answer. There is no decision made. There is no clear roadmap on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's why I'm facing the Maker as a individual, basically.
It's important to note we're also working with several other communities, and we want to take on board their feedback and recommendations or input along the way in determining what that legal structure is.
Yeah, thank you for going with Matthew.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so as we've hit our time now, I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you, Punkar, Matthew, and Joe, for coming to spend half an hour with us answering a lot of questions there. I thought that was a really interesting discussion. I certainly enjoyed it. And it seemed to stimulate a lot of conversation, which was really good. So what will happen next is we'll post this up on YouTube, and I will be in touch with you over the next couple of days to get you live as a recognized delegate on the voting portal, and you'll then be able to share that address, and anyone who wishes to will be able to delegate to you. So yeah, so welcome to Make a DAO, and I look forward to working with you going forwards.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having us. Yeah, this was a great discussion. Thank you for all the questions. Actually, we just realized that we might need to also already improve some of our processes. So it was very valuable for us.
Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for everyone's time. And yeah, thanks for
Appreciate it, guys.
thanks for all the questions. Really appreciate it.